Assalamu alaikum all. So today I'm going to be talking about feeling stuck learning a language and the tips that I use to get out of that feeling. And I saw a really good video by Zoe Languages that I'll make sure to share in the description. Welcome. On this channel, I share my journey learning languages as a Muslim. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the language learning dip. Now, the dip is a book written by Seth Godin, and I'll make sure to have the link in the description to that, which is a fantastic book. It talks about, when you learn something, when you kind of get into a business or whatever it is, initially you have that, really nice sort of excitement learning the language, and eventually you kind of hit a dip where you're kind of struggling to learn the language and things like that. And if it's something that you really want to learn, and if you can somehow just try to persevere, then eventually you have that dip. Eventually you can then come back up. So it's dealing with that dip, and that's where most people kind of sort of get stuck. And I definitely feel like I'm in that bit in French at the moment, so I'm just kind of trying to work through that. And one of the most important things to know is that the language you're currently learning, your target language, is that something you really want to learn right now? So for me, I was learning sort of French and Arabic both at the same time, and it was just getting like too much, and I really wanted to focus on French, mainly because I'm going there on holiday in the summer. So that's why we really wanted to kind of focus on that. It's a bit easier as well, and I was making a bit more progress, so I thought, let me try and focus on that rather than trying to go down two different paths. And another really important thing to remember is that motivation is 90% of the battle. Is just staying motivated, just to keep going. That is the main thing. More important than what resources or whatever you're doing, or how many words or what frequency or whatever you're doing, is just having that motivation and being able to continue every single day. And one way to stay motivated is like something that I'm doing is that I'm going to France in a few months. So that's kind of like giving me that bit of motivation to learn. I've got like an online tutor as well. So knowing I've got a lesson with a tutor, that kind of keeps me sort of motivated as well. I need to do some homework and things like that. It might also be you've got a friend, or you could go online and try and find someone to talk to as well. That might help motivation. Or if you're interested in a particular part of that culture, so for example in French there's like so much food and like such a big part of the French culture, so learning about the different foods and things like that could be really motivating for you. I know with Japanese, a lot of people like Japanese animation, so that could be something that's quite motivating for them. So they really want to kind of get into that. And one really good tip I like is just to kind of focus on input. So when you're struggling to do lessons and things like that, just watch stuff, listen to stuff. I'm currently watching videos on YouTube and vlogs and things like that, and it's quite funny, and even though I don't understand most of it, like little bits are getting in there, and it's just another way to expose my brain to the language. And it's quite easy to do. I just sit there and just put it on and try and do it. But sometimes you have that friction in your head, you're like, oh no, should I be doing this? I don't really understand much of it. It's kind of getting through that. And then, especially if you watch something really fun, like there might be something on YouTube where it's really well edited and, really kind of engaging, that is better. The more addictive, the more engaging it is, the more we can use it to our advantage. Another thing is just to remember, keep going every day. So to get out of that dip is just to keep going, just trust the process. Your brain will just naturally pick things up. Like, don't force it in there. Just need to keep going a little bit each day, and things will start to sort of click and make sense. And that is one thing that I've definitely found difficult with, but it definitely does, work, and definitely something that is very true. And another thing is just to mix things up. I was using one book, then I kind of stopped using the Asimil book. I'm now using Duolingo, which I really like, and that's kind of worked a lot better for me. It's quite engaging and things like that. Also mixing up the show, whatever I'm watching on Netflix. I was watching the French Properties show, which was quite good, but now I'm switching to another show. So I'm watching Lupin at the moment on Netflix. So you're watching that in French with French subtitles, and I'm understanding little bits and pieces, but I'm just exposing myself and just mixing things up as well. So I'm not kind of forcing myself just to watch one thing. Another thing is that maybe things are just a bit too difficult. Like the level that I'm doing was too hard. Like with Asimil, definitely got kind of too difficult. I was understanding bits. It was taking too long to search through the pages, go back and forth and things like that. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to kind of do Duolingo, use my online tutor, just kind of pick things up like that, and then go back to the book maybe at some other point. But that's not the priority at the moment. The most important priority is just to keep going, keep ticking along. Another really important thing is to make your language learning tools easier to use. So for example, I've got, I'm using Duolingo. It's so dead easy. Just pull out your phone and just start using it straight away, like simple as. And you don't need to carry a big book and things like that. I could do it anywhere from queuing up, something like that. So that makes a massive difference. So it's not even about how good the app is. I mean, Duolingo is a fantastic app, but the fact of that portability means that I'm actually doing it. And what am I actually doing? What are the lessons that I'm actually doing? That's the most important thing to remember. And it kind of reduces friction. So finding ways to reduce friction as well. The other thing I'm doing is using a tool called Anki that I'm going to do a video about in the future, and it allows me to create flashcards, but I need to make sure I've organized those flashcards and done them properly. Otherwise I'm not going to use Anki. If it's like got rubbish flashcards that I made, then I'm not going to use it. So I need to make the flashcards nice and clean and make sense and useful, and it's all about practice. Just keep doing and not being a perfectionist about it. Another really thing that's helped me is just going back to basics and getting those solid. There's the verb être, which is to be in French, and you conjugate that. So it means you switch it for different different pronouns. So like, you know, if you say I am is je suis, if you say you are and you have, then it's like toi es, and like, you know, it kind of switches, and just like I sort of knew it, but I didn't know it's solid enough. And that is really important for the rest of French, like doing past tense, future tense, all of that sort of stuff. So going back to those basics helped a lot more, and kind of helped, you know, make the more difficult things a bit easier to understand. Another thing is just focusing on the things that you're finding difficult. Like, you know, I was finding past tense, future tense, and just things kind of mixed up. So just kind of going back and kind of focusing on those. So I'm making specific Anki flashcards so I can focus on those and get those better. It was making it harder because I was just moving on to the next thing. And it was like, yeah, getting more complicated. Another problem I had was just skipping days from learning as well. So some days something would happen, especially like in Ramadan and times like that. And, you know, and then it would just make it harder to pick up. So it's about trying to just do a little bit each day, like a Duolingo lesson, something like that. You know, just doing a little bit of Anki, but it does all come back to making sure things are organized and set up so I can quickly and easily pick it up when I, you know, don't feel like in the mood and I haven't got much energy and things like that. Another thing to consider is what else is going on in your life. You know, life is complicated, life is messy, there's loads of things happening, and sometimes you may not be able to do as much as you want in your language learning, which is totally fine, and it's not important to you know, beat yourself up about that. You know, during Ramadan things were really busy, and, you know, I just had to kind of take a step back and just do very minimal about language learning. But what I'm doing now is I'm kind of revising that stuff, and my online tutor came up with a good idea. He goes, let's go back and let's kind of go over that stuff again rather than continuing on and on. Yeah, just want to say thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please check out my video where I talk about the main habits that I use for language learning.